Thank you, and welcome to the MedTech Conference. On behalf of Abiomed, I want to thank you for joining us in the Patient Pavilion today. The theme of this year's conference is improving healthcare and improving lives, and you will find no better example of the way your innovations are changing the lives of patients than what you'll see here today. It's my pleasure to introduce the CEO of Abiomed, Mike Minogue.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the honor to talk to an amazing woman of courage, character, and if you would look at her, you would be shocked to know that a few years ago, which is coming up on the anniversary, she was very close to death after having her second child, a beautiful little girl named Amelia. She also has a 5-year-old, and so I would like you to just start off. Tell us about your heart condition and about how everything evolved in your story.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica. I started having some high blood pressure issues at about 34 weeks gestation with my daughter Amelia, and I was put on bed rest and I had some medications, but that didn't work. So at 37 weeks, my doctor decided to induce me to hopefully resolve those blood pressure issues.
Now, what you had, Jessica, was something referred to as PPCM. What did you know about PPCM before this heart event?
Well, PPCM stands for Peripartum Cardiomyopathy. And honestly, before I was diagnosed with it, I had no idea it even existed. Peripartum cardiomyopathy is heart failure in childbirth. And when I had my daughter in a hospital in America in 2016, I had no idea that I could possibly die of heart failure.
So, Jessica, would you mind telling us a little bit of the story and how the events transpired that led you here today?
So the birth story?
Yes.
How much time do you have?
Enough.
So, like I said, at 37 weeks, I was admitted to have my daughter, and my doctor noted that she was breech. So she was going to be a C-section. The surgery went fine, and everything started crashing in the recovery room. My blood pressure was unstable, my oxygen levels plummeted, my heart rate was very elevated, and my husband Kevin was actually asked to take Amelia and leave the rooms to allow more doctors and nurses to come in and see what was going on. So he left with Amelia, and after a few minutes, they decided I need to be taken to the ICU. And Kevin was told that the nurse would take Amelia to the nursery, and Kevin would need to accompany me to the ICU. While I was in the ICU, they realized that I had suffered a heart event and that I needed to be taken to the cardiac cath lab. En route to the cardiac cath lab, I actually needed CPR, and I coded a couple of times on my way there. So while I was in the cardiac cath lab, I was diagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy, and Dr. Schloss, who was my cardiologist at that time, and his staff had the knowledge and experience and tools that they needed that they realized that I needed Impella support to survive. So they put in an Impella device, and really right after that was placed, all of my vital signs really started to improve. So that was pretty remarkable that device definitely saved my life. I definitely would not be here without Impella.
So the physicians where you were at Barnes Jewish?
That was at Mercy.
That was at Mercy.
Yes,
they
where I
put the
delivered.
Impella, and then they transferred you to Barnes Jewish on the Impella device. And so at the time, your organs would be starting to fail because the heart's not pumping enough blood. The heart's not pumping enough blood to your brain. Your brain's releasing chemicals and trying to react, and the rest of your body tries to preserve all the blood in the system, and sometimes the kidneys can shut down. And on top of that, you had just had a baby. So what happens now as they transfer you to the next hospital with the device on support?
So you're right, they transferred me to another hospital called Barnes-Jewish to be placed on ECMO. And my family was told that I was not eligible for a heart transplant because my kidneys were shutting down, my liver was shutting down, so Impella really was my only option. So I was transferred to Barnes, and Barnes, I think, was a little surprised that I was functioning as well as I was, because they were sure that after 10 minutes of CPR that I would have some sort of cognitive issues, that I would have brain damage, but they took very good care of me at Mercy, and so I went to Barnes and I was placed on ECMO, like I said, and I had the ventilator, I had ECMO, I had Impella, and I was on pretty much maximal life support.
So at this point, you have ventilator breathing, you have ECMO for oxygenation, and you have the Impella for your heart pump support, all three, which it's hard to say and live through, but your mortality rate at this point would be extremely high. And the fact that you're sitting here today, alive with your own heart, is really a credit to the physicians in the hospital that managed each of the crises at a time. You came off the ventilator, you came off the ECMO, they weaned you off the Impella. And tell us about how you are today and how your heart functions currently.
Well, currently I'm on no medications, which is pretty amazing. My heart function is 60%, which is in the normal range. I was at 5% after having my daughter, so that's a pretty big jump. And I think the biggest takeaway is that I was just able to recover my own heart, and like I said, the only option I had was the Impella. I wasn't able to get a heart transplant. I wasn't able to have an LVAD. So I think that I was able to go home, but I was also able to go home with my own heart, which is pretty miraculous.
So tell me about your anniversary of this event coming up, and what will you and Kevin do to kind of understand how blessed you are to be here and what your purpose is?
So ever since I was diagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy, my mission has just been to spread awareness and educate people, and to just advocate as much as I can. Oops, don't need those anyway. So I speak whenever I can, even though I hate public speaking. I speak whenever I can to educate as many people as I can, and I organize heart walks at home in St. Louis, Missouri, just to make sure that people know about peripartum cardiomyopathy. And my mission is that if I could save just one mother from being taken from her family by peripartum cardiomyopathy, then I know I'll have succeeded.
So to close, when I first met you, you gave me the red wristband, which says "Save the Mommies."
It used to say "Save the Mommies."
I wore the first one to, it no longer has. Now I'm worn off the second one. I'm going to get a third one, but why don't we just end with you telling us about Save the Mommies and what things that everyone can do to help and get more involved.
So Save the Mommies is an organization that spreads awareness about peripartum cardiomyopathy, and I kind of stumbled upon them through social media looking for a support group after I learned of my diagnosis. And I have kind of evolved from being a heart sister in that group to growing into the secretary of that group. So I have written proclamations and grants, and I'm just trying to raise funds and awareness for Save the Mommies, to help people with peripartum cardiomyopathy. And I just want to thank Abiomed because they've been very generous, and they really have helped me live my mission to save the mommies.
So I want to thank you for telling your story. I know it's very emotional. May God continue to bless you, Kevin, your son Noah, and of course, little Amelia. So thank you very much.
Thank you.